Thank you for coming to Recipes for Success, Learn How to Learn, and Time Management. Today we have some wonderful presenters, Amanda Guerrero and Juanita Martinez from Instructional Support. Amanda's our Director of Instructional Support, and Juanita Martinez is our Learning Center Manager. Welcome to Recipes for Success. Welcome, Amanda and Juanita.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jana, for the introduction. We're very excited to be here with you guys today and want to just thank you for taking, a few minutes out of your busy schedules to attend this workshop. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. Juanita, are you gonna? There we go. Okay, super. So today our workshop is, it's called Metacognition, which is just a really fancy way of understanding how you teach yourself to learn, basically. And because we're responsible scholars, we want to let you know that the basis of this presentation has come from this reference book. It's called Teach Yourself How to Learn Strategies You Can Use to Ace Any Course at Any Level. And can we go to the next slide?
Okay, metacognition. The use of self-reflecting awareness and adjustments to the behaviors that support goal-directed processes. It's the ability to think about your own thinking. Be aware of yourself as a problem solver. In other words, you're going to plan, monitor, evaluate, and control your mental processing. In other words, am I understanding what I'm learning and the material in the class, or am I just memorizing it? Can I accurately judge my own level of learning? So know what you know and what you don't know.
So if you're looking at these questions, how might you have answered these questions? So what did most of your teachers in high school do the day before a test? What did they do during this activity? Usually the day before a test, you would typically go over, say, a preview of what the test is going to be over, or they may have given you the preview a couple of days in advance and you go over what your answers or responses to that preview might be, so you'd have something to study, right? Well, what grade do you think you might have made on the test if you had gone to class only that day before the test? And do you think that you might succeed at college level courses using that same strategy? So what we're trying to do here is get you into the process of thinking a little bit differently than how we were trained in high school about how we prepare and study for tests, because you've got to be able to take everything that you learn there and elevate it here in college. Next slide, please.
So how metacognition empowers. So here's an example. A first-year calculus student, here are his grades, starts with 79, 54, and it starts to elevate to 90, 95, and 90. So before metacognition, probably the student was memorizing the formulas and using online homework programs. After metacognition, the student was able to solve problems using no external aids, and he was testing his mastery of the concepts. So what type of strategies did the student use to become a better student?
This is just basically a student understanding what their learning, priorities or strategies were versus when they didn't understand what they were, right? So we're going to talk about some different strategies. The first one being effective homework strategies. So when we're having effective homework strategies in place, that would look like something where you would study the material first. So before you even look at the problems or questions, make sure that you're reviewing your textbook and your class notes. Work examples of those problems before looking at the solution, and then check and see if you got the right problem correct. And if you didn't, that's a good indication to go back and review and figure out where you became lost. Of course, if you can't quite figure out where you became lost, or you just keep struggling, that's what the tutoring services here at HCC are for. And that's the program I oversee. It's our face-to-face and in-person tutoring program. So you can always call 718-8184. We're going to pop that in the chat. And I'd like for you guys to program that into your cell phones before the end of this workshop. Reason being, if you put it in as HCC tutoring, when you do struggle, you have that telephone number already in your phone and ready to go so that we can get you scheduled and connected with a tutor. All right, so let's go back to the slide. So after we work the example problems without looking at the solutions, then you check and see if you're correct. If you're not correct, go figure out where that mistake was made, and then consult if you can't quite figure it out. So a lot of students don't really understand what it means when a professor posts office hours, and they usually are required to put that in their syllabus. Office hours are not for professors to be alone in an office and to be grading papers. That time is designated for students and their questions. So understand that when you have questions, look at your professor's syllabus and find out what the best route is that they prefer that you go through. For office hours, many of them will ask that you schedule an appointment with them. So be prepared to do that. And my recommendation, just like with tutoring, is to do it earlier and more frequently in the semester so that you don't get behind and you don't put yourself in a place of panic when it comes time for midterms and finals, okay? So this is why I'm very, very excited to see so many people on this call today, is because we're getting to you sooner, and hopefully you'll be able to implement some of these strategies earlier in the semester versus waiting until later. And we have a lot of data that shows success rates of students who do take proactive measures earlier than later in the semester, and what that typically means for the outcomes in terms of their grades. So work your homework problems and answer the questions as if you're taking a test. So it's almost like you want to simulate what the test might be, even with the given timeline. So if you know that your class is an hour long and you've got a test and it's 30 problems, say it's math, for example, go ahead and time yourself for an hour and try and get those problems solved and simulate that test, right? That's another thing that we notice, is that a lot of times students may miss out on points because they didn't have enough time. So that's another thing that we need to kind of plan for and strategize as we're going through effective homework strategies.
Okay, next slide says, why is using the textbook so important? Yes, we do have textbooks, whether it be a physical textbook or ebook for most of your courses. So what word comes to mind when you see the word C_T? Would this word come to mind if you lived in a culture that had no cats, or you've never seen the word before? Our brains automatically fill the missing information if you're very familiar with the content. That comes hand in hand with text messaging. We use, like, for instance, LOL. We know what that means because we're so used to using that. Does your brain have the info to fill in what's missing in course notes? Will the test be written from what your brain or the professor brain sees in the course notes? So you have to read your textbook so you become very familiar with what the professor is discussing in the class.
I also think it's a really great idea to kind of organically form study groups. So if you're taking an in-person class and you identify a classmate or two that you think you might be able to hold study sessions outside of the classroom with, that's another really great way to fill in the gaps in your notes, because you can compare notes with another person. So I just wanted to kind of add that little plug in there. So let's talk a little bit about effective reading comprehension. Now, this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And the reason being is that I have historically been I'm an auditory learner, so I learn by listening. So when it comes to reading, sometimes I will read an excerpt and I have to read it again and then again, because for whatever reason, I didn't understand it. And so understanding how you can have better reading comprehension was really key when I was going through my degree programs. So preview the text before reading or developing an anticipated set of questions. So if you look at like the heading for whatever chapter you're reading, and maybe even read the summary at the end. And then you can formulate in your mind, like, what types of questions do I think that this chapter is going to answer, right? And then as you go through your notes, you can fill some of that in. So read one paragraph at a time and paraphrase that information. I want to tell you something that one of my recent doctoral professors just taught me, and I thought was brilliant. We have to read 15 to 20 page articles and a bunch of them just to find which ones we want to use in our papers. Well, it's a lot of reading, and sometimes I go through an entire article and I was like, wait a minute, I can't use anything here, and that was a big waste of time. So if you also have an ebook and you pop that information into an AI tool, say like Poe, and ask it to paraphrase that paragraph for you, that's very helpful. You can check your own paraphrase with what the AI tool comes up with and compare the two and be like, okay, I didn't quite get that. I'm glad that it mentioned this, but you'll get more information out of paraphrasing because it's like the Cliff's Notes for each paragraph, right? We use something, and we recommend using something called the SQ5R strategy, and it really does work. And the SQ5R stands for survey, question, read, recite, record, review, and reflect. First of all, you're going to survey. So look at the introduction, look at the summary of the chapter, look at the bold print and the italicized words. Look in the margins and see if there are something written, say, in different colors or any tables and graphs. Take a look at that stuff and then question. Come up with some questions that you think that the reading is going to answer, which is kind of what we talked about at the very beginning. So what did I need to know from this paragraph? That's an excellent question to ask when you paraphrase and you're comparing, say, the notes from an AI tool when they're paraphrasing for you. So there's responsible use of AI, and we have 2 workshops we're offering tomorrow, just to let you know. Feel free to pop into those because we want to teach our students what responsible use of AI is. And this is a responsible use, helping you understand material. Using it to devise a paragraph for you in a paper is not a responsible use of it, right? So we're going to want to go over that a little bit. All right, so read one paragraph at a time and then recite or summarize it in your own words. Record or write down, like you can annotate in the margins. I recommend if you have a physical book, I recommend doing that with pencil, just in case you decide you ever want to resell that book. You can go back and erase. And then review or summarize the chapter information in your own words, and then reflect other views in the class. So the reflection can come at the end of reading a chapter. It can come after you've taken notes in a class and read the chapter. It can come after study sessions. Reflecting is very important. But in the classroom, you're able to actually see and hear other students' questions, and that's pretty insightful as you're going through your own understanding of things.
I would like to add, if you are using ebook, sometimes the publishers that put together these ebooks, they have tools. Use the tools. It either has a highlighter, they have glossaries, they have vocabulary words, flashcards.
Search.
Yes, search. Yeah, use those tools that come with the ebook. They're very, very handy. You can even use a note section where you could actually type in notes for yourself for each chapter. And if you want, you can probably print those notes or put those notes somewhere in a file. And so look into that. I know I've used the ebooks in the past myself, and I've used the tools. I've actually used the highlighting portion, and whatever I highlighted, actually put it into a note folder, and that was very, very handy. So become familiar with that. If you're not real sure, I'm sure there's a help feature that's available from the publisher. Developing your metacognitive skills. What's the difference between studying and learning? Studying is memorizing and focusing on the what's, which is short-term learning that may be forgotten. Learning is focusing on the hows, whys, and what ifs, which promotes a better understanding of the material and applying what you learned. I would say that for the most part, I still do this to this very day. I'm always applying the what if. Learning leads towards more learning. In other words, why do I need to know this material? Can I teach what I just learned today to someone else? So I want to give a little example here using this testimony. Um, this first year student testimony states that I attended the supplemental instruction session and the exam reviews. Before the exam reviews and SI sessions, I would try to answer as many of the questions as possible to see where I was in terms of grasping the information. Then at the exam reviews, SI sessions, I would know what I needed to understand. Next, after the reviews and SI sessions, I would go to my room and teach the material to my beta fish. The material I would explain, I would study more. I would continue that cycle until I could explain everything in my notes. So you don't have to use a beta fish. You could teach it to your younger sibling. You could stand in front of a mirror and teach it to yourself. And this is something that I would do. I would try to recite everything I learned in the particular chapter or in a particular unit, or if there was a review paper, I would go over the review and see if I could remember as much as possible before I took the exam. That's teaching myself or teaching it to someone else. As a matter of fact, a lot of our peer tutors have learned that as they're teaching material to another student, they start becoming the master of the content. They become better at it. They become better at it. And this is something that students learn that when they start teaching it to their classmates, they become better at it and become better at it. That's metacognition.
So, what do we know about learning? I love talking about this topic because typically in our high school, we've not ever really gone through this information. And even in college, you're so focused on the content of your courses. These are skills and things that, are wonderful to know on the side about how you learn and who you are as a learner and things of that nature. So, what we know about learning, there is active learning. And it's more lasting, meaning you retain more information than with passive learning. So they say passive learning is an oxymoron. We all know oxymorons are what, two words that you put together that have exact opposite meanings. But thinking about how you think is important. That's metacognition. The level at which learning occurs is important. This is something that every educator is taught. It's called Bloom's taxonomy. And we're going to talk about what that is because you're going to be able to identify at what levels you might have learned in the past and at what levels you might need to be working towards learning in the future. This is applicable not just while you're in your educational journey, but when you even move on and learn anything new in the workforce or personally, etc.
Okay, education majors, you're going to be able to have a little introduction to this. um, Bloom's taxonomy is a hierarchy of learning levels. Starting at the bottom of this pyramid is remember. This is where you recall facts and basic concepts. You're going to define, duplicate, list, memorize, and repeat information. The next level is understand, where you can explain ideas or concepts. This is where students going to classify, describe, discuss, explain, and identify information, even report or select or translate.
Mm.
The next level is apply. You're going to use this information in new situations. This is where you're going to execute, implement, solve a problem, demonstrate, interpret, operate, sketch. I can imagine this being like a lab work. The next level is analyze. You're going to draw connections among ideas. This is where you're going to differentiate, organize, relate, compare and contrast, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, and test. Evaluate is the next level. You're going to justify a standard decision. This is where a student is going to have to appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, or critique something. And the top level is create. This is where you produce new or original work. And most likely, a student's going to design, assemble, construct, conjecture, develop, and formulate, or investigate something. And I can imagine an architect, somebody who's developing something, an engineer, constructing something.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember when we're looking at Bloom's taxonomy, each level is a building block to the previous. So when you get up to the top and you're creating, you've already gone through all of the previous, 5 or 6 levels along the way, and now you're producing something. So next slide. So what would your response to this question be? At what level of Bloom's did you have to operate in to make A's or B's in high school? So creating is at the top and remembering was at the bottom. So if you guys could pop into the chat what you think that would have been. So in order for you to make A's or B's in high school, what level do you think you guys were operating within in high? Andra, you put a 3. Okay, Haley, and also a 3, being able to apply the information. So remembering, understanding, applying. Okay. So lots of 3s in there. Laura up to 4, analyzing. Got a couple more 4s in there. Lots of 3s. So we're kind of in the middle ground, right? Go ahead and hit the next button. 3s and 4s. Okay, 2s and 3s. Yeah. So at what level of Bloom's do you think that you're going to need to operate in to make A's in college? We've got a 5. Thank you, Star. Let's see here. A 6, yeah, being able to create things, 4s and 5s, absolutely. So you guys are right on target here. Yes. What was acceptable in high school is no longer going to be as acceptable, and it's important, but being able to take it to the next level is what you're going to need to require as you progress forward in your college. I mean, you guys have to think about it like this. If having a degree or certificate was easy, everybody would be having them, right? You're working towards something now, and part of that process is it's going to be hard at times. It's supposed to be hard at times. But that's how we learn, and that's how we're able to progress our knowledge and our careers, our everything. Let's go on to the next slide.
Okay, here's my favorite, the study cycle. So we actually asked for permission to use this particular pictogram from Louisiana State University because we loved it so much. The study cycle is the use of the study cycle to get the most of your in-class time and structure of your out-of-class time. So it begins with the start button, as you can see the yellow circle. Mm-hmm. And you can start with a preview, skimming your material, your notes, and get forming a big picture of what you're supposed to be covering. You're going to attend class, take notes, and ask questions. And you're going to review by reading your notes, filling in the gaps, and forming questions. So during your study time, you're going to be focusing on multiple things. So let's kind of outline that on this right-hand side. So it starts by, setting a specific goal, and then you're going to study for, any time that you set that you feel comfortable with. It could be 30 minutes, 50 minutes. And you're going to use effective study strategies that we talked about earlier, where you're going to be engaging with the material, using the concept map or reading the comprehension, working out the problems, using anything that you're comfortable with. And you're going to be asking those questions: why, how, and what if. Or you're going to teach the material to yourself. Break. You're going to take a little break if you need to, just to clear your mind. Sometimes we need to take a break. And you're going to summarize or wrap up what you've learned. And you're going to take a decision of whether you're going to continue studying, take a longer break, or go ahead and decide to study another subject matter. Or whatever. You might be taking multiple classes. Maybe you want to study something different. But after you finish your study session, you're going to ask yourself, can I teach this information to someone else? Can I teach it to my beta fish, so to speak? And you're going to repeat this cycle if you need to. And you can do this, daily, on the weekends. whatever you have time to study, whether in class time or out of class time.
So time management is also something that is, really important for us to hone in on, and we do have some workshops on time management as well. But blocking out time during your schedule, your scheduled week to study is really important. If you have no idea where to start with scheduling. And consider things like, is my course a course that offers supplemental instruction? Supplement, you can ask your professor if that's the case. Supplemental, and if you want to enroll in supplemental instruction courses, you can talk to your advisor about that. But SI sessions are where there is a formalized study group that is established. So a student who's taken the course has been identified as a supplemental instruction leader. They've showed success in that course, and then they retake that course with you, and then they have formal study sessions outside of the classroom. It's a great program. We don't offer them in every course, so make sure to check and see what the options are for that. But we do have probably about, I want to say maybe 60 SI leaders right now. Scheduling tutoring appointments. We popped that telephone number in the chat. I asked you guys to pull out your cell phones. If you came onto the call later, please go back and review the chat and program the telephone number for tutoring into your phone. You can schedule tutoring appointments. We have tutoring in almost every subject that we offer here at HCC. And understand that if you're in a course where there's any piece that's a writing component, any of our writing or English tutors can assist you with that assignment. They may not be able to focus on the content specific, but they can help you with the writing component. And then use this formula to get a rough idea on how many hours per week that you need to calculate to block out study time. So if you're taking a combination of the difficulty of the class as well as the number of credit hours. So if you're taking a class, and most of our classes are 3 credit hours in length, and you know that it's moderately difficult, so it would be a level 2, you would multiply the 3 by the 2 and come up with 6 hours a week is needed for studying outside of the classroom. So as your classes go on, you can make adjustments to the amount of time that you're studying based on what's required by the class and also how quickly you're absorbing and understanding the content. So you might move between a 1, 2, and a 3 each week.
Now, also keep in mind that you have, personal schedules. You've got your home life, you've got your work life that, you've got to work that in there as well when you're managing your time. So do keep that in mind as well whenever you're trying to put your schedule together. So if you got a phone that has a calendar, start plugging that information in there on your calendar. Or if you one of those, I'd like to have like a written calendar where I like to write everything out. I know Amanda does. She likes to write her calendar out with
I
a
do.
pencil.
With a
But yeah,
pencil.
but yes, but having that calendar and mapping everything out, what you're going to do on a daily basis really helps you to commit to making sure that you're going to accomplish your goals on a daily basis and on a weekly basis, especially if you've got an exam that's coming up, or if you have a test that's coming up, or I'm sorry, an exam and a test, or an assignment that's due.
I think this
Mindset
one's
about, oh yeah, mindset about our own intelligence. So when individuals have a fixed mindset, your intelligence is going to be static. Everyone has a certain amount of that. That's when a person is saying, I'm not very good at something. And, like for example, I'm not very good at chemistry. And at this point, my grade for that class is reflecting it. That sounds very negative, right? But a growth mindset is when an intelligence can be developed and you can grow with actions. And for example, a person, I can say something like, I ended up earning a 90 in a course, even though I started with a 60. I think what I did different was I made side notes in each chapter, And as I progress onto the next chapter, I was able to refer to these notes. I would say that in chemistry, everything builds from the previous topic. That's a positive mindset. In other words, I knew that each chapter would build into the next topic, and therefore I needed to make sure I read each chapter. That's positive thinking. I know what to anticipate.
So this is a really nice pictogram as well. It kind of helps you understand the different mindsets, which one you might have, and then also kind of what spirals when you have such a mindset. So from a fixed mindset perspective, and this is written kind of small, I have to try to make it bigger. Again, intelligence is static, meaning you believe that you were born with a certain amount. It leads to the desire to look smart, and therefore the tendencies to avoid challenges, give up easily if you're not succeeding at something. You'll see effort as fruitless or worthless, and then it's threatened by you feel threatened when other people have successes. Instead of being excited for them, you might feel resentment about that. Oh, thanks, Jenna. I think Juanita is running the slideshow. She said if you wanted to make it bigger, you could click it and move your mouse up a little bit. But so as a result of having a fixed mindset, you may plateau earlier on in your learning and not necessarily be able to reach your full potential. Now, the growth mindset is where you feel that intelligence can be developed over time. It typically will lead to the desire to learn and therefore the tendencies to embrace challenges that come your way. I can't quite see that one. Persist if there's
Setbacks.
if you have setbacks, kind of be a little bit more resilient and bounce back. You can see that effort is important because it helps develop yourself in a way that gets you more towards a place of mastery. And so learning is not fixed. It can grow. And typically those who have a growth mindset, they're not as threatened by the successes of others. They see that as something that's great, and they're more interested in talking with those individuals and learning from them about what it was that they did. Now, I will say this, oftentimes in life, we will learn more from when we fail than when we succeed. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of things that we may attempt, but we figure out what doesn't work when we fail at something, and then it's time to pivot. I always like to use the analogy of like a mouse in a maze. If you're not getting to where you need to be, okay, you hit a brick wall. That doesn't mean that you just throw your arms up in the air and say, okay, that's it. I'm not gonna, this isn't for me. No, you pivot, you go a different direction, and you try something different. That is what this workshop is about. We're trying to help students develop a different way to approach studying so that maybe what had worked in the past isn't what you choose as you progress forward, and we're giving you some strategies around that. So having the proper mindset, check yourself, and it's okay to sometimes have a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. You might fluctuate between the two, but what's most important is when you identify that, you know what, these are limiting thoughts that I'm having right now. How can I reframe how I think about this to where I'm not going to end up where I'm not growing from this particular situation, right? It's common. Next slide.
Okay, so your key takeaway. Knowing how to use effective homework strategies where you solve problems without looking at an example or solution, effective reading comprehension skills, where you memorize what you were told to memorize by your professors. You're going to ask yourself, what am I supposed to know after reading each chapter? You're going to develop metacognitive learning strategies. Can you summarize or teach what you have learned? Bloom's taxonomy. You're going to try to aim for higher order thinking skills. And that chart, the study cycle, spend time working on your subjects every day. Attend SI or tutoring sessions early and frequently. And have a growth mindset. Aim for 100% mastery. So, which strategy will you use?
So to fail or not to fail, top 5 reasons to fail is we did not spend enough time on the material. We started homework late, did not memorize the information, did not use my textbook, assumed to know the material but did not apply what was learned. And here are the top 5 ways to avoid failing. I did a preview review for every class. I did homework a little bit at a time, use the book and use the suggested problems by the professor or what was in the book itself. Making flashcards. I do a lot of that when I'm studying, even to this day. It helps with memorizing information, and it's also great to just put a rubber band around them and pop them in your purse or your bag and then pull them out when you're waiting for things. Even if you're waiting in a fast food line, it's not your turn yet. Instead of pulling out your phone, you can pull out your flashcards. Practice explaining the information to others. Like Juanita was talking about, teaching the information to a stuffed animal or a betta fish or maybe even a sibling. If you can reteach the information that you learn, that is a higher level of learning. Okay. Next one.
Okay, we also wanted to inform everyone that we do offer the following counseling services, and you can find that information on our HCC website. All you have to do is put in a search bar counseling. So, counseling does offer personal counseling, ADA counseling, crisis counseling, and student success and retention type services. So we wanted to make sure that we include that for those students who are struggling with their courses. So it might be beyond the learning part. You might have other factors in your life that's contributing to you struggling with your coursework. So just be sure that you know all the resources available to you at HCC.
And this is our generic flyer for our academic success centers. That's the program that Juanita and I work in. I want to say 17 of our campuses across the system. And if you are not able to make it in person, or if the tutor that you need for the subject is not close to the location where you're at, we can also schedule you for a virtual session. So every one of our tutors are required to be working on campus, but in front of a computer with a webcam. And so if they're not busy with another student, they are available to be able to take virtual sessions. Mid-morning, and then there's one at 6 o'clock at night. So we try to give you guys some different options for those. But definitely check out the rest of our workshops if you found this to be helpful. We guarantee you're going to find the other ones to be helpful too. So try out some of the learning strategies that we've gone over today, and let's see how that might help you be more successful in your class. And it doesn't really matter what your past performance has been in any given subject. You have the opportunity to learn, and you have the opportunity to hone in on what your best learning strategy is that works for you. And do you always have to call to schedule tutoring? No, you don't always have to call, but if you don't call, you stand the chance that the tutor might already be scheduled in appointments and you would have to wait. And so bring study material with you so you can work independently until they are available. It's best to call and schedule an appointment to make the most out of your time.
Right. A lot of our tutoring centers are also, I just wanted to mention that some of our tutoring locations are also digital access centers, which also offer some study rooms, some study space, quiet space if you need that. If you need it, if you happen to be on campus and you want a quiet place to take your online exam, you're more than welcome to use our tutoring rooms for that purpose. So I just wanted to add that in as well.
Yeah, that's true. And we do have those study rooms. So it's a great place if you and a couple of your classmates want to come after class or before class to kind of review material together. And if we don't have it on campus, typically the library will.
Library will have it as well. Yes.
Yeah. And again, we just want to thank you for your attendance and your commitment to your success. We do hope that you come and see us for some of our other workshops.
I want to thank all of you for coming, and thank you, Amanda and Juanita, for coming and presenting this. So thank you, everybody, for coming, and we hope to see you at our future events.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Good luck this semester.
Bye-bye.